There's a very dark side of Wikipedia. Do we find this site on Wikipedia only in one language, or is it spread over most countries around the world? This is the central question we follow in this broadcast. And we have a very special guest tonight from the east coast of the USA. Stay tuned. These are the tales of Wikihausen, and my name is Markus Fiedler, and I give you a warm welcome to our show. The Tales of Wikihausen is a videocast dedicated to all the stuff around corruption and propaganda in Wikipedia. Like Alice in Wonderland, we took a deep look inside the rabbit hole for 1.5 years, and 29 episodes from of our show so far. And all these episodes were available in German language, on our YouTube channel. Take a look here. And who is we? With me traveling through the Wikipedia matrix from the very first beginning is the terrific Dirk Pohlmann from Berlin, Germany. Hello, Dirk.
Yeah, terrific is true. No, maybe not. But Berlin is true. Let's say it that way. Okay.
It's wonderful to have you here, and an experienced producer of over 30 documentaries, all for the German public service broadcasting companies like ZDF. And you are a specialist for the period of Cold War and clandestine operations like the submarine incident in Sweden in the early 80s and some other very scary stuff. Do I have forgotten something? Please introduce yourself to the audience.
If you're from the United States, my films have also some of them have been aired by, for example, National Geographic and History Channel in the USA, and I covered a lot of ground. I started with spy flights of the Cold War, which mostly originated from Germany, with submarine operations, using submarines as spy tools, and to human experimentation in the Eastern Bloc countries, so MK Ultra Soviet style, so to speak, to a lot of other stuff. And the origin of the Israeli nuclear program, which is closely connected to Germany, not many people know that. But okay, be that as it may, it's about 20 documentaries aired in more than 30 countries, including Russia and the USA, both. So was a little bit funny. But so basically, I'm a journalist, yeah, and I do investigative work, even in history, yeah, which is very interesting, I can tell you. But now we're investigating Wikipedia.
I'm very proud to work with you. Let's come to our special guest tonight. She's an investigative journalist and works about the dark side of Wikipedia in the USA, and she did all the research on her own. And this is breathtaking because we know that it isn't very easy to dig through the well-polished surface of Wikipedia and to find the more interesting stuff and of a corrupted and system and that has been installed inside Wikipedia over the last years. Here she is, Helen Buyniski. A very warm welcome to you.
Good to be here. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah, and we were really thrilled when we first read your blog and the part there, Rotten to the Core. And I said, wow, this is really, you dug very, very deep. And I mean, we were trying basically and to do the same, and we came to similar conclusions, to say the very least there. But you have done an enormous amount of work. And is it really, you did it all on yourself? Is it a one-woman operation?
Well, I was asked to take a look into the dark side of Wikipedia by a radio producer called Gary Null, who was angry about his own portrayal on Wikipedia, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with the many varieties of smear jobs that the Wikipedia editors like to perpetrate. So I started investigating and did more and more and more, and I've spent hours looking through long conversations between these people who, fortunately, the one good thing about Wikipedia is that most of the activity that goes on there it stays there. There's no people usually don't have it deleted. So yeah, I've just been researching this for about a year now, and have found all kinds of really unpleasant secrets that I don't think that most people who use Wikipedia, certainly not most people who contribute money to Wikipedia, which I'm shocked that anybody still does. But it's a very disturbing fact that this is the 5th most visited website and that people take it as truth when there are so many conflicts of interest involved and just so much skullduggery going on. I mean, I don't know if it rises to the level of like an MK Ultra type operation, but certainly some of the same agencies that were involved in that are involved here too. And yeah, there's definitely an element of propaganda that is driving the whole thing.
Yes, that's exactly what we found out too. But when I started, I really was a little bit naive. I thought it's an open source website, and it's a kind of very democratic thing. Everybody can work in there, and I only got to know, by some strange articles. For example, because I had to. When I was investigating Gladio, it's like 8 or 10 years ago, so that is rather after the beginning of Wikipedia. There was a ton of stuff in there, and then I noticed how it faded away. And what is did you once believe Wikipedia is a good thing from the white side?
Well, I always figured that it would be establishment friendly, just because that's like any normal encyclopedia has sort of a bias towards established orthodoxy. But I realized pretty quickly after looking at some of the political articles that, I mean, as you say, they start as being like there'll be articles that will sort of look at the other side of historical events, and then those articles will gradually get whittled away, and then they'll be memory holed entirely. I mean, I've seen entire biographies just get wiped off the face of the earth because they couldn't figure out a way to skew them to make the person look unpleasant or unfavorable. And I was never really had a big faith in Wikipedia, just because I don't have that much faith in the wisdom of crowds. But it's much worse than that. I mean, if it was just the wisdom of crowds, that would be one thing. But it's the wisdom of crowds being used as a shield for intelligence agencies and governments' machinations underneath, which is much worse.
So we started with an article on a Swiss historian who was a kind of a comet, I would say. He was rising very fast. He did his doctor thesis on Gladio. It was the first academic work in Europe. And then we noticed, or rather Markus noticed, and I joined in later, that the article about him, after publishing that, he also turned to 9/11, and that became toxic for him. Yeah. So his academic work on Gladio was, he was on the on a sure track to become a professor at the ETH in Zurich in Switzerland, which is as high as you can get in Switzerland in the academic level. And then it faded, yeah. And then he lost his professorships in Zurich, and then also in Basel, and then more or less he lost all kind of academic work that he had before. He was working as a lecturer, not a full-blown professor. He never habilitated, but he was on the track to that. And so that's where we noticed that things are somehow wrong. And from there, we saw that there must be kind of an agenda, and it's certain people. That's the next thing. What Markus, I think, but you can talk about that yourself. How did you find that out with Daniele Ganser? And that it's kind of a smear campaign, not an encyclopedia that is written about him.
Okay, I had a very special view on Wikipedia from the scientific view, because I'm a biologist, and I only dig in articles like photosynthesis or glycolysis, something like this, and these articles are very good in Wikipedia. Then I talked to a historian colleague, and she said to me, "No, you can't trust Wikipedia." And I thought at this moment, are we talking about the same Wikipedia? And then after half a year, there was the moment that I saw a video from Daniele Ganser, the man you talked about. And had a look on his article in Wikipedia, and this was a real other person they are talking about. So he is a very friendly person. He is not on the right wing, on the political spectrum, but on the left wing. And in Wikipedia, you think he's anti-Semitic, anti-American, what is far right and Holocaust denier, something like this. And I thought, what's this? And I'm starting. The very first documentary, this was my point. I made this film, The Dark Side of Wikipedia. Helen, I gave you this film.
Yes,
and hopefully we will translate it to English, to English language, because so far there's a German and a French version of this film available on YouTube. And then Herman Plopper came and made researches from the history of Wikipedia. Why and where does Wikipedia start? Who are the persons and what's behind? Not Bill, but. Jimmy Wales. He's called Jimmy Wales. What's behind Jimmy Wales? Why does he start this project? And then Dirk came, and we are three persons who made this research. And Helen, you did it all on your own, and this is
on your own.
This is you can. Proud of this, because when we read through your article, Rotten to the Core, it was fantastic. Because you wrote down all the stuff we three had done and in German Wikipedia, and you show the same side of Wikipedia in the English version.
Yeah, that's also a little bit terrifying, because it means that the problem is not national, it's not limited, it's a systematic problem of Wikipedia. And this is one of the parts we're trying to get more people from other countries, or from other languages rather. Yeah. So, for example, France, that's a large part of Africa, or Spanish, South America. I'm very interested how things are there, because what you described, we could, can take that 100% for Germany. It's the same. It's just that you have more from the investigative side. You have more, and you dug deeper than we were. We were going after certain. We went from persons and what they did. We were looking for these hyperactive persons, but I found that on your articles from the university study, which basically came to the conclusion that it's a very small group of highly people with an agenda, so to speak, who behave like a religious group or a political activist group and have their own agenda. But that's not what an encyclopedia should be. But maybe you can give us an outline from your perspective, what you found in the USA, what you think is the biggest problem of Wikipedia. What have you uncovered? What's going wrong there?
Well, again, as you say, that the problems in the German Wikipedia, from hearing you describe them, and the problems in the English Wikipedia are very much along parallel lines. There is a very small group of people who have superhuman amounts of time and energy to just edit Wikipedia constantly. And you can either say, okay, well, these people are, for some reason, editing Wikipedia 18 hours a day, and maybe they work a job, but their boss doesn't mind. Or you can say, oh, they're getting paid to do this, and that seems to be more likely. There's one entity who became sort of infamous in the UK and in the US for
Philip
Cross for editing politicians' biographies in such a way to bias them, to make them just extremely ridiculously cartoonishly biased. And this UK politician, George Galloway, put a bounty on his head, not to kill him, obviously, but just to reveal his identity. And it turned out that there was several people who were sort of using this account and going through his router to skew the coverage of UK and US politics. He was eventually banned from covering UK politics.
We have a nearly comparable character in the German Wikipedia. It's called Copilot. Copilot in German language, and he behaves like the same like Philip Cross.
But I would like to get into that. You said Philip Cross because when we were unfortunately number 2 to find out who he was. We did that via the internet and informed Galloway, but he knew already when we told him. So we were the second, which is not a good place. But the point is,
but we are fast.
We believe that he is a single person and that he is an Asperger autist, and that he is. Because what we found is the people that we had are probably only one person. But you said it's now clear that several persons went through with Ruja. That's very interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was told. And then it was associated with a major UK publication. They didn't say which one. But given that Philip Cross is obsessed with this neocon writer Oliver Cam, who is really a minor figure in the grand scheme of things, but whom Philip Cross is completely obsessed with, I figured it would probably be the publication that he writes for. And there's more than one Philip Cross is the thing, is that there's plenty of these kind of people in the US, people who just edit constantly, who, if they aren't getting paid for doing it, clearly can't hold a real job. And I just don't see that anybody would be editing Wikipedia 18 hours a day out of the goodness of their heart or out of the desire to spread knowledge around. And many of these people, the more you look into them, you find they have links to intelligence agencies. There's one user, Slim Virgin, who is one of the original Wikipedia administrators, who it was discovered after she really upset the wrong person, basically by creating a biography for him and making it very negative. That guy looked into her identity and found that she had changed her name, moved from the UK, where she was involved in the investigation of the Lockerbie bombing, had basically upset the one of the news organizations over there that was looking into the Lockerbie bombing. She, because her boyfriend of 2 weeks had apparently been killed in the bombing, put on this whole show of mourning, and she was going to get to the bottom of all this. She had the cops break down the door of, I think it was ABC in London, and steal all the investigative materials so that it ended up just the investigation was upended and they never really got back together. And the guy who was her boss ended up basically being disgraced and being considered somewhat unhinged because he really wanted to get to the bottom of the story, and she had made it so that he couldn't. She moves to Canada, becomes a Wikipedia administrator, and starts skewing entries nonstop to be in favor of Israel, just to push the US-UK political line. And this is another person that she will edit for 48 hours at a go. And it's like, is she sitting there popping speed, or is she like more than one person? What's the deal here? And there's a couple of these people.
The keyword is more than one person. Short rewind to you said that Philip Cross is the account of Philip Cross is used by multiple persons. Is it right? Is it correct?
That's what I was told.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true, but that's what I was told.
This fact we didn't know so far.
That's what I just said. Yeah, that is for us. It's interesting. Yeah.
We end up in the German Wikipedia, and any time we end up in on the same question: is it one person who writes 24 hours and 7 days a week, or are these multiple persons? And Copilot, on Copilot, we know that he is one person. We think we know he's one person. Okay. And
but
we verified this, but
don't know if his account is one person for sure, because he's also hyperactive. But it would still be possible, yeah. But the point is, as you said, what do you do? What do you work for a living if you're working 12 hours, 16 hours a day on Wikipedia? How is that possible? Yeah,
there's no social life.
Yeah. Yeah, and Wikipedia tries to sort of like diffuse this criticism by putting up this one guy, Steve Pruitt, who there was a bunch of news stories about this guy. He's the archetypal sad sack. He's overweight, puffy face, droopy eyes, and supposedly he works for the I forget which government agency, but supposedly he works for a government agency where he sits at the desk all day and they just would let him work on Wikipedia. He supposedly edited like a third of the Wikipedia articles in the English language. Which, I mean, so they're trying to nip this in the bud, like the fact that people are realizing that, it's not really normal for people to edit Wikipedia 18 hours a day, and that people have started looking into this study that, only, I forget the percentage, but it's very small, like 5% or something of the, or is it even less than that? Maybe 1%. I would have to look at the study again. I don't recall, but that only X percent of Wikipedia editors are actually doing the editing, and
1% of the
1%
in the English
it was
Wikipedia, 1% of the editors do 70% of all the stuff which is written in the Wikipedia.
Because it's a curve. I mean, you can put the point somewhere, and then, but it's clear that there's a very, very small minority. I've just been on a panel here for the new federal law in Germany, the contract rather between the states for the public TV. And there was a guy from Wikipedia, and he said that there are 70,000 editors, and that's true, but it's not 70,000 editors who are working. It's only about, let's say, 500 to 1,000.
No, the number is wrong. And anyway, then the number is wrong, because if he refers to all the registered Wikipedians in Germany, this is a number 194,000, around this, nearly 200,000 registered users in the German Wikipedia. But the active users, all the active users who write in minimum one entry in the Wikipedia per month, that are 17,000 users. Writing one entry.
How much do you have in the United States?
I've read 130,000 have been active in the last 6 months, and then there's like 30 million or something like that registered users.
Okay,
but
we
it's
have
a very
only
small percentage that are active.
200,000 of registered users, and if you look who is writing more, because one entry is not really active if you are a writer. Yeah. So if you take 5 entries. Who writes 5 entries in Wikipedia? This is a number around 5,000 persons, and this is something like that. We can show this. We have the graph here. Now you see it. The audience will see this now. And if you write 100 entries per month in Wikipedia, there are only 1,000 persons, and these persons are nearly all the so-called citers in Germany, because we have one account type more than in the English Wikipedia. The citers are the gatekeepers of the German Wikipedia, who should control the stuff, what's written in Wikipedia, and should decide to take it or whether to take it or not to take it. And there's a very special working group, a small working group, a small inside group that is built with citers and with administrators. And the citers are the executive, and the administrators are the ones who make the way free, the pathway free. So if there's one who says no, this is not true, what you're writing in Wikipedia, then an administrator comes and will delete his account or something like this. Yeah, and a citer calls him and says, "This is one who's disturbing me," and then the administrator calls him a vandalist. Yeah.
Is it the same in the United States that they get kicked out if they are dissidents?
Yeah, definitely. If they get hauled to the notice boards often enough, I mean, there's arbitration enforcement and there's ANI, administrators information notice board, but it usually takes more than one offense. But depending on if you upset the wrong person, you can be banned outright. A lot of times it's these administrators and these people with oversight powers and rollback powers who will squat on an entry and make sure that nothing happens. I mean, when I was trying to fix Gary Knoll's biography, I would make an edit, and 5 minutes later it would be reverted, even though I had studied the rules. I knew what the rules were. I made very sure that I made editing according to the rules, but I was a new user, so they didn't want any part of that, and they did this multiple times. After I tried to revert it again, I got banned for 72 hours. I tried to revert it again after that, and and I got kicked off of Wikipedia. So it's like if you interfere in the wrong subject matter, and there are also specific administrative rules for contested areas like American politics and like Israel-Palestine, where they make it they skew it in favor of the intelligence services and the governments that edit. So if an intelligence service wants to come in and say the Mossad wants to change all instances of occupied Palestine to I don't know. I don't even know what they would change it to, but they were changing it to something. I forget what it was, but it was basically to make it seem less egregious than it is. And they make it so you can only revert once. And if you do it again, then you get blocked or you get banned from that subject area. So the more disinformation they put in, the more difficult it is to get it out, because you can only revert once on that entry or in that topic area per day. So they can just put in all the disinformation they want, and it's very difficult to get it out. And that's how you see these entries become over time more and more skewed in favor of these countries that tend to control the Wikipedia in the English language.
That is the next step, because we call that the junta. Yeah. So there's a group of people controlling the content. And then, of course, the next idea is what is the content that they're protecting, or what are the issues that they're furthering? So, what is their agenda, basically? And we found it's kind of a, let's say, you could have if you put a tag to it, it would be NATO politics, or and we also found this guy that we followed, we didn't know whom we would meet. Yeah, we were just looking at this hyperactive guy, and then we find that he volunteered for the Israeli Defense Forces as a German conscientious objector here. Yeah, and he switched to Judaism. He became a Jew from being a Catholic, I think. And he was a member, or is a member, of the left-wing party, but he smeared people from his own party who had a non-pro-Israel agenda, to put it that way. It didn't have to be negative to Israel, but not if somebody was not pro-Israel, then he would be punished in Wikipedia by him. So that is, we didn't know. And then we were, of course, the attackers, if you uncover this, is anti-Semitism, and you are negative to Israel. And so, but digging further, we found that I think one of the countries who's really doing this systematically in Wikipedia is Israel. Yeah. What is your take on that? Is it the same in the
To make it more precise, it's not pro-Israeli, but it's pro-Israeli government. So if you are a pro-Israeli government, you are smeared from this guy who's called Felix in German Wikipedia.
It's not only government; it's also history. For example, if you go into the history of Israel, then you have a kind of cleaned version of the history, and it's the Israeli state is right, and anybody against it is wrong, and is
They try to rewrite all these massacres of Palestinians as, it was a battle, the Battle of Dariesin, which was a massacre by the Israelis of the Palestinians. And they do this throughout Israeli history. And Israel has, its government has a closer relationship with Wikipedia in the open than any other country. The chairman of the Wikimedia Israel chapter he's done PR for former Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres. He did PR for Tzipi Livni, who is also I think she was the opposition leader in the Knesset for a while. I don't think she still is.
And she was Mossad also.
Yeah. So it's like you can't really
and foreign minister for some time. Sorry. Yeah, it's
saying that Wikipedia is infiltrated by Mossad is not exactly a conspiracy theory if you've got the chairman of the Israeli Wikipedia chapter working with Mossad agents, and so they've made agreements with like Israeli TV stations to take videos and insert them in English Wikipedia articles And when editors cried foul, saying, this is extremely biased and, not exactly true, then Itzik Edry, the chairman of the Wikimedia Israel chapter, said, well, we made this partnership with the Israeli TV stations, and we wouldn't want to insult them by removing these videos. I mean, it's not our fault that Palestinian TV didn't come up with videos of their own. It's like, yeah, because you're bombing them constantly.
Very interesting.
Helen, you have to repeat this very slowly for the German viewers, because this is very new to them, because we didn't talk about this issue in the last 29
issues.
In the last 29 episodes of our show. Because please tell it again and very slowly what's going on with Israeli intelligence service and Wikipedia. What's the stuff?
Well, the chairman of the Wikimedia chapter for Israel is named Itzik Edry, and he's been a PR man for various Israeli politicians, including former Prime Minister Shimon Peres and the leader of the Zionist Union Party, Tzipi Livni, who is a former Mossad agent. So when people say that Mossad has infiltrated Wikipedia, it's not a conspiracy theory, it's not some idle speculation, it's really a fact. And this chairman of the chapter has also partnered with Israeli TV stations to include videos, highly biased videos, I might add, in articles about Israeli current events, Palestinian current events. And so the articles gradually get skewed in favor of the Israeli side. When American editors tried to call them out on this, they said, oh, well, we wouldn't want to insult this TV station by removing these videos that they worked so hard to make. It's not our fault that Palestinian TV didn't do the same. And it's like, well, it's not exactly an equivalent situation. Palestinian TV stations regularly get bombed and reporters get shot and things like that. But
it was an accident. Accidentally bombed.
But that
the coalition goes deeper.
We have the same going on here in a way that they are just preparing that. On the conference that I attended, they were talking with so the German public TV stations are talking with Wikipedia to have their content in there, and probably. I would assume that the same is going on here when I said NATO agenda, that we have these kind of reportings that exist on, let's say, Russia, for example, which is a more and more aggressive stand that we have in Germany towards Russia, that this is kind of you get kind of a glass bubble where you have a certain amount of information, a certain type of information, and you delete other information. And it's with the credibility of an encyclopedia and of the public TV stations. So it's kind of an information war to have a ministry of truth, and of which Wikipedia is a part then. Yeah? So that seems to be. I didn't know that it already existed with Israeli TV. That is.
There's more. Yeah, there's more too. I mean, the Israeli public universities are having classes to teach students how to edit Wikipedia for what was the term they use? A balanced and Zionist worldview. Well, those two words are mutually exclusive. A Zionist is not balanced, so trying to call it a balanced and Zionist worldview doesn't cover up the fact that you're teaching your students how to skew Wikipedia, and it's funded by the government. Mm-hmm. So this has been going on since at least 2014. That was when I found a document talking about this program, trying to get students interested. Goes way back to 2008. This group, Camera, which is something for Committee of Accuracy in Middle Eastern Reporting, which of course accuracy is it's up to anybody whose accuracy that is. But they were caught basically forming a Wikipedia army. The chairman's words, not the Wikipedians' words. That was Camera talking about their Wikipedia army. And they were exposed and they were told to leave, and one or two users was banned. But it's like when you are actually paid to do this, you have all the time in the world to regroup, create new addresses, new usernames rather, and go right back in and do the same thing. People have been caught doing this for years and years and years. So it's been going on since 2008 was just the first time they were caught. It's entirely possible that they were in it from the beginning, because Jimmy Wales is a big pro-Israel guy. So They have tools that no other chapters have. The Israeli Wikimedia chapter has tools, translation tools. They were the first to get them. It's not even I'm not even sure if other chapters have them even now. I mean, there's pictures of Lila Tretikov, the Wikimedia Foundation former director, posing cheerily with Benjamin Netanyahu. It's like they really gave them everything and said, "Hey, go to town, propagandize the world. We're not going to stop you."
Yeah, it's also this general. They spent 70 million, and there's this general who said that they wanted to have an army, really, of information warriors flooding. That was a quote. Wikipedia with the appropriate content from their side. But what I wonder then is this is in Germany. It's very much, of course, because of the Nazi era and the Holocaust. It's mine territory to walk there and say anything. How is that in the United States? I mean, is that addressable? Because this is not what an encyclopedia should be. It's kind of information warfare. That is what armies do in war times. That they distort and basically white, black, gray propaganda, these kind of things, psyops, political warfare. That's all in that direction. And because Israel considers himself to be in an eternal state of war, then everything is allowed, so to speak. But what about the United States? Is this a topic that Wikipedia can be used for this and is used? I mean, it looks a little bit like it's constructed to be used that way because it's not repaired if there is a problem. So is this a topic? Can you report? Do people come and say, "Hey, what did you find about Wikipedia? That's interesting. Let's make an interview with you or so"?
Yeah, I mean, I was interviewed on RT with Chris Hedges about this topic because Chris Hedges and RT is a little more brave than American media in general. There's no laws against speaking ill of Israel, but they've tried to tighten the screws a little bit in the state of Florida, for example, quote unquote anti-Semitism, which the definition that they use is this International Holocaust Remembrance Association definition, which
you
is
have that
not,
too.
Yeah, we have that.
Okay,
it's not institutionalized. It's the State Department has adopted it, but it's not really in law except in Florida, where the governor is so pro-Zionist that he went over to Israel to sign that bill. And it's
but
they're not even
the same in Europe.
They made it law in Germany. It's in all. So this exact definition that you're talking about was made a definition, and so kind of do certain things what they consider, and they also made inequality between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism now, and it's a legal offense in Germany. That is something that is not only that can be punished. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, it's really scary.
A petition case, you could go to jail for that. Yeah, so that is so that's also. I mean, that's interesting. We wouldn't know about it if we wouldn't talk here. I didn't find that when I read about it because it's hard to read anything. I know Chris Hedges is, of course, he is a dissident. He had to leave New York Times, Pulitzer Prize winner, after his 2003 reportings on the invasion in Iraq, and then of course it's the same for us. If we were interviewed by RT here in Germany, but then you get a stamp because you are interviewed by RT. You are not credible anymore because you spoke to some Russians. Yeah, that is the same there in the United States.
Yeah, well, I mean, I work for RT in the U.S., so it's like I've seen firsthand that we are actually more driven to be accurate than U.S. media, because if RT gets something wrong, then it's like, oh, disinformation. Oh, you did that on purpose. You're trying to undermine democracy. If the U.S. media gets something wrong, it's just like, oh, that was an honest mistake, even though it very rarely is. I mean, they're getting exposed more and more, just putting out straight up disinformation and no connection with truth. But you can't even say that now because they accuse you of attacking the media. Oh, how dare you attack the media? You're not the media. You're a stenographer for power. There's no, I mean, RT has more integrity in its little finger than a CNN or New York Times does in its entire being. So, yeah, it's RT. It has a pretty sizable audience in the U.S. because people are tired of being lied to. And I mean, it's unfortunate that we have to go to the Russians to get accurate news about America, but it's a sad fact.
Mm. But do we want the very fresh tales from the Duma from RT? No, but we want the news from America, but we can get this
from
RT,
Syria,
from
or
RT,
from Lebanon, or from Iraq, and so on. That's this dissenting. That was once said to be the core of Western journalism, that you have different sides and you see it. And now they are treated like, to me, I'm old enough to remember the Cold War, and it looks pretty much like twisted around. Yeah. Now we have dissidents in the Western world. You have Snowden, you have Assange, and and now it's you can go to jail if you speak truth to power in the Western world. So it's like just 180 degrees sideways. Yeah. But I don't want to brag about these things. I think we all know it from our practical work. But for example, has there been reporting on Wikipedia in, let's say, CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, the usual culprits, so to speak?
Not really. I mean, they'll run stories about that Steve Pruitt guy who's edited 1/3 of the Wikipedia, and they'll show him singing opera, and it's this like morbidly obese guy singing opera. It's like, oh, let's all point and laugh at the nerd, but it's like that's not what Wikipedia editing is really like. It's and they won't go into that. I mean, they did a little bit. There were a few stories about Ronan Farrow, the son of Mia Farrow, who's been investigating this sexual abuse stuff in Hollywood. The producer Harvey Weinstein fondling the actresses and apparently raping some of them and stuff. Supposedly, Wikipedia was hooked up with some of the PR companies that were trying to cover up some of that and cover up some. It wasn't the Harvey Weinstein they were trying to cover up, but sexual harassment within like NBC and some of the mainstream media organizations. There were a few stories about that. But in general, I think Wikipedia has been weaponized with the aid of the mainstream media to push this Russian hysteria, this new Cold War stuff. One of the extremely prolific editors called Sage Kandor, I wrote about, you probably remember him from my piece, but he was very much involved he would create tons and tons of articles about various like Russian propaganda techniques. They call them Russian propaganda techniques, but they're used by any intelligence service. Things like whataboutism, supposedly that's Russian now. It's like, no, that's actually, that's universal. But a lot of this stuff appeared in Wikipedia very early so that people would come across an unfamiliar term around 2016 when Donald Trump was elected and the mainstream media lost their minds. There was a lot of talk of this compromat, which is compromising information. Wikipedia suddenly had an entry about compromat, and it was written largely by this Sage Kandor person who was, I don't know if they were actually hired by the Clinton Foundation or by some entity connected with them, but I find it very difficult not to believe that, just because there were several hires by that entity, not the foundation itself, but people connected with it, called Correct the Record, which went around on social media changing or confronting negative information about Hillary Clinton and trying to change people's minds and just, correcting the record, etc., except not correcting it because negative information about Hillary Clinton is basically correct. But this person, Sage Kandor, had a previous identity who had been banned from editing political entries for basically filling them with PR and bias and negative information that was not well sourced. And when it was finally discovered after Sage Kandor had done so much damage, had gotten many real editors, good editors banned, it was finally discovered that they were this banned person who had coincidentally worked for a PR firm. So it's like basically that it's pretty much certain that they were hired by somebody to do all that. And it's, I mean, even the fake news websites, they created the entry on fake news websites back when that was a thing. And they were working with somebody in the Wikimedia Foundation, Victor Grigas, who was in charge of a lot of the PR for Wikipedia. They were working together to build that entry. So it's definitely, he was in with the people at the top for sure.
Yeah, it's if you talk about mainstream media and the news about Wikipedia, and you must be blind if you don't see the agenda that is brought forward from this TV broadcast stations, because it's anytime the same. We see it in Germany and through Europe also, because it's anytime the same story. There are two less writers in Wikipedia, two less women,
too little,
too little, too little,
yeah,
Small?
Yeah, there are stories about that. We have
Two little small women.
That.
Okay, okay, you're right. Two little women, and please come to Wikipedia. Help us to write in this encyclopedia. And
is it the same in the US? I mean, they basically say not enough women, not enough colored people, and
that's what we have.
That's what they say. This is the only problem that Wikipedia has, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. They'll put in a PR article about how we got all these articles about women scientists now. We have all these projects to make more articles about women scientists. And
it's all about gender. It's all about gender and male and female. But they don't come to the point that there is a systematic manipulation of information in the political articles in Wikipedia.
Because it's a monopoly. I mean, the big problem is that you have systematic manipulation in a monopolistic structure. Yeah, and how to get out of that. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing they've done is to so narrow the range of what is called a reliable source that even if editors wanted to give the articles a wider range, so they weren't all pushing the NATO line or pushing the Zionist line, they couldn't, because the only sources that are acceptable are these super mainstream sources. Even the Daily Mail, which is one of the most highly trafficked websites in the world, news websites rather in the world, is it's banned from being used as a source in English Wikipedia. Yeah, banned by a group of about 50 editors decided that they were going to make decisions for everybody else, and they made the Daily Mail is no longer able to be used. Even though the Daily Mail, I mean, it's kind of sensational a bit, but its reputation for accuracy is not much worse than, say, the New York Times or the Guardian or any of these other sources that are encouraged to be used. So they've made sure that even if the editors do suddenly decide to wake up and give a more balanced view of world politics, they're not going to be able to.
We have a comparable case in Germany. There's Telepolis, a magazine from Heise Media, and this is
it's an online magazine.
An online magazine.
That's a very good source. That is
a very good source.
Not like Daily Mail. Yeah, it's rather on the let's say scientific side of reporting. And they're banned.
Technical.
And you have, I mean, for example, I just noticed I'm regularly on Minpress News because they do a very good job, and they are banned from Wikipedia too. I read there.
Yeah, Minpress is great, and they are not allowed to be used. RT is I don't think RT is banned, but it's like deprecated severely. You don't get to use it for political articles. I guess you can use it to write about like Facebook or something. Yeah. But
RT is banned from German Wikipedia. If you try to use RT as a source, you don't get it inside the German Wikipedia. No.
Yeah, but I think that's about the time that we should take right now. But we see it's parallel. It's absolutely parallel. So I think we will come back to you and we go to specifics. Now we know from the outline. It's really we're living in the same world, yeah. And the thing is, I didn't even know when you were telling it's the strategy is multinational or international, and we don't know because we only see what happens in Germany and in the German Wikipedia, which is Switzerland and Austria as well, yeah. And then we have sometimes a glance over the fence, which is what happens like with Andrew Philip Cross. We noticed that, of course, yeah. But it gets more and more interesting because who's coming up with all these ideas, for example, to create this Ministry of Truth of the most important TV and radio networks in Germany together with Wikipedia. And you say you have that already in Israel. It seems like most of that originated, or they first tested there, and then it goes to other areas.
Yeah. Well, you see Jimmy Wales speaking at these United Nations events and stuff, and Clinton Foundation events. Jimmy Wales is in with some very powerful people, and I think they saw the potential of Wikipedia immediately. I mean, he was talking to Bono, the U2 singer, who is for some reason has significant amounts of power beyond his band, and he was in 2009. 2005, they were meeting with these people, and Bono introduced Jimmy Wales to all these other powerful people, had Jimmy Wales speaking at Davos, speaking at all these events where basically the policies that run the world are made. So obviously these leaders saw the potential of Wikipedia immediately and just glommed onto that. And that's what we're seeing unfold now. It's and yeah, now Jimmy Wales is on the board of NewsGuard, which is a browser plugin that basically is your little personal wrong-think babysitter, and it follows you around and shows you, if you go onto a website like RT, it'll put up a little red notice that says this website is not trustworthy. If you go onto a website like CNN, it'll say, yep, green light, go ahead and read whatever's on here. So Jimmy Wales is on the board of that the board of the organization that purports to decide what news is reliable and what news is not. So that's a very scary thing. And that's something that really should be exposed more. I mean, I've written about it, and I think some other people have written about it, but it's like people don't really understand this. The Jimmy Wales is not just some like schlubby guy who happened to make it big with Wikipedia. He had a lot of help making it big.
Okay, let's stop here and start in the next edition with exactly that, that we go on there, and Helen, thank you very much. It's kind of for us, I think both of us, it's really interesting, and it's not very nicely interesting. It's
it's scary.
The scary stuff.
Your headline is scary stuff. We're getting close to Halloween, and it's all over Wikipedia. So what we see is kind of really of a ministry of truth, and it's much worse than we thought when we started even this conversation. I mean, we read your articles, but the parallelity of developments and that you have a ministry of truth sounds very much like very dark stuff. Rotten to the core is a correct expression, and it's the dark side of our information society. So we hope to continue from here in our next edition, or one of the next editions, again with you, and we will prepare specific topics and talk about that. But what you just mentioned, I mean, this is what I feared, what they are planning, but now they're doing it already. Something like, that is.
It's the ministry of truth, definitely.
Yeah.
Helen, many thanks to you. And Dirk will have the last word.
Once again, I don't have anything more to say than I really admire what you did. If it's 1 year, in 1 year, what you dug up, that's a ton. And I will try to get some people for looking at the French Wikipedia and the Spanish Wikipedia, and maybe we can join in and see there. But maybe we contribute there. But I think that is a structure that goes far beyond national boundaries. And our problem in Europe is that our whole media systems, we don't have a European media system. It's only national. It's, if you go to Italy, it looks completely different from Germany, France completely different from Italy, Denmark completely different from, let's say, Spain. So, and we don't talk to each other. There's really no European transfer, and that is, we have all these languages here, and most people speak English more or less, but we are far behind the curve of what they are doing, and we have to get up to speed to see what they are planning, and it doesn't look good.
It's as things move more towards voice-activated computing and single answer searches, Wikipedia is going to become more and more like totalitarian.
Like our whole
information monopolists
develop. It's that's really the opposite of what I have been told as a young student at the university, what the West is all about. Now the West is kind of it looks pretty much Orwellian. Okay, but let's go from there and work against that with our small forces that we have. But the internet is one chance that we have. A small man, but okay, Helen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Helen.